Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Thames Centre. It's Monday, April the 24th, 2023, and the time is 5 p.m., and I will call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. And we have no announcements at the moment. We'll go then to our presentation, and I'd like to welcome Mr. Rick Orr at this time to speak to us regarding insurance. Rick is from Orr Insurance and Investment, Municipal Insurance Risk Management. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. We okay like this?
Yes.
Okay, a little closer.
We record, it's live, so
Okay,
it
there we
makes
go.
it easier for people to hear you.
Certainly. So thank you for having me. When Michelle and I were speaking, she asked if I could come tonight and speak about risk management and claims. So we've got 10 minutes, a lot to get through, and we'll do what we can. So risk management is defined as the process of planning, organizing, directing, controlling the resources and activities of the organization in order to eliminate the adverse effects of accidental losses. So what is your role as a council? Each councillor's employee, volunteer of municipality is required to show the highest concern for the public by doing your utmost to prevent losses, observe risk, and duty to report concerns. Risk control techniques are avoidance, prevention, reduction, segregation, and then the transfer of risk. Avoidance and prevention and reduction are obviously what we like to see the most, followed by transfer, which is where you get into contracts and insurance. Policies and procedures are a key step in the risk management process. They must be easy for staff to maintain. When creating policies and procedures, staff have to be aware of what's considered the industry standard. What's a guideline? What are your neighboring municipalities doing? Are you incorporating legislative changes? Are you following the CSA standards for playgrounds? What are the other associations recommending, such as the Ontario Trails Council? If you do a study, studies are terrific, but make sure that you follow through on the recommendations that are suggested. And if you don't, what's the policy and the budget you're going to put in place to address those? Don't do a study and set it aside. Are you meeting the minimum maintenance standards? Roads and winter maintenance, sidewalks, trip ledges, potholes, street lighting, patrolling, weather monitoring, declaring significant weather events. Have you implemented inspections and maintenance programs for your sewers, trees, roads, and sidewalks? Equipment, city facilities, parking lots, fitness centers, multi-use trails, toboggans, the list goes on and on and on. Documentation is the key to all of this. Staff needs to know, be regularly trained on, and follow and adhere to the set policies and procedures. This can play a significant role when courts are deciding if there's negligence. Implementing all of this then takes us to risk transfer, which are contracts and agreements. You've got contracts in place for your winter risk management agreements, facility snow parking lots, permits, subdivision agreements, mutual aid agreements, lease agreements, and finally, you transfer it to insurance, which is the most expensive part about risk management, so you want to avoid me at all costs. The types of documents, so if a claim does occur, your adjuster, Cheryl Sabansky from Claims Pro, Cheryl will be asking municipality for all types of documents involved in any incident. And it's a long list: weather reports, maintenance logs, inspection reports, manuals, adopted policies and procedures, incident reports, staff training records, certificates of insurance, third-party contracts, checklists, GPS logs, and even council minutes. Documentation confirms that the city has actually completed their duty of care in a reasonable manner. You have policies and procedures in place to establish those standards, and that your employees, your volunteers are well trained and carried out in their duties according to the operational guidelines you establish. If we can provide acceptable documentation in event of an incident, many claims go away very early. Trial lawyers don't like to work for free, and if they can see that the claim's been documented, you've met your standards, it'll often disappear. We're going through this really quickly because it's not a risk management seminar for staff. This is trying to impress upon you all the fundamentals that staff have to address when they're looking at establishing risk management policies and procedures. People often say then, so we've implemented this wonderful risk management program. Where's the savings on our insurance? Well, that's not the way it works. An insurance company will recognize who has good risk management and who doesn't by their claims experience. One follows through directly. If you don't have good policies and procedures, if you don't have good documentation, if you don't have good training, your claims experience will follow that. And nothing drives an insurance premium quicker than poor claims. So when staff come to you and ask for an investment into a risk management process, please consider it as an investment in your future insurance premiums because it will pay dividends for sure. So risk management, while boring to you guys, is really key to staff. And we keep it top of mind when they come to you and looking for new things to do that'll make the community better and put you in a better position if an incident were to ever happen. And then just quickly before I go, there's a handout in the package on claims. So despite the best risk management programs in place, something's going to happen. It always does. But that doesn't mean that the municipality is negligent. Every incident must be investigated before that determination is made. So again, what's your role? To observe, to document, to be sympathetic, and really to advise your citizen to call their own insurance company. You cannot admit liability. Every contract has terms and conditions, and one of them is to not admit liability. If you were to admit something you were to say we were at fault, and it turns out we weren't, you've jeopardized the insurer's position to defend your claim. If you jeopardize them to a point where you violated the terms of the policy, you could have a judgment against the municipality that's not actually covered by insurance, but you get a judgment because you said it was your fault. You took that on yourselves. So don't admit liability. A couple of examples where you're not always negligent is sewer backups. Sewers back up for a variety of reasons. Who knows what people flush down there, and that's not your fault. You can have tree roots, you can have poor drainage. So sewer backup doesn't always mean it's the city's fault just because it's the city's sewer. Trees, even when they're on a municipal tree on the borderline, doesn't mean that we've had an ice storm, we've had a windstorm, we've had a lightning strike. Again, just because a city tree comes down doesn't mean it's the city's fault. Documentation of your tree program, your city flushing and inspection, your sewer flushing and inspection program will all go to show what you guys have done to mitigate that loss, to show that you've done everything you could do. The best advice, again, I can give you is to be sympathetic and have them call their own insurance company. They pay a broker to look after them. They have a relationship. That insurance company's job is to put your person back into where they were immediately before the loss as quickly as they can. If their insurer thinks that the city is negligent, then they'll come after you, and then the lawyers get to fight it out instead of you having to fight with your citizenry who was at fault. Just on that document that I handed out, just a couple of things. Never admit your liability, never comment on the coverage or amount of coverage available, never comment on how much the claim may cost, never comment on how long the process might take, or never comment on any past losses or problems in the area. Never say, oh, you're the third guy to run that stop sign this month, or, oh, I heard somebody else ran that stop sign, or, geez, that's really dark out in that area. All things you don't need to say to people when an accident happens. What you can do is show sympathy, absolutely show sympathy. Suggest they call their insurance company. And under the Apology Act of 2009, you can actually say, I'm really sorry that happened. That's unfortunate. You should call your insurance company and we'll make sure we report it to anybody that the municipal insurer. And then pass the details on to the appropriate clerk's office or CAO. Just at the bottom, the three simplest things you can do are, again, show sympathy and apologize it happened. Don't admit liability and suggest they call their insurance company. They'll get taken care of quickest that way. That was what I was asked to come to speak tonight about, Your Worship. If there's anything else you'd like, then I can answer any questions.
Good, thanks very much. Are there any questions that council would like to ask Mr. Orr while he's here? Deputy Mayor Smyberg?
Oh, while he's here, we might as well ask some questions. Right?
Oh, great.
Yeah. No, I know that you were asked to talk about risk management only for tonight's presentation. So I'm just hoping that maybe you can come back at some other point in time, because I know that we've changed insurance
We did
companies.
change carriers.
And I think that we're looking for some additional details in terms of what kind of coverage is part of that new program. So if you want, I can talk to the interim CAO to see if we can schedule
Sure.
something on that.
Yep.
And I just wanted to thank you. I know that you had been contacted with respect to our significant events policy as well, and you provided some information with that.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from council? Well, thank you very much for your presentation. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, at this point, we'll be moving on to the so at this moment, we have a recommended motion that the presentation made by Rick Orr of Orr Insurance and Investment regarding municipal insurance risk management be received for information. Someone to me, Deputy Mayor Smybert, seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Okay, motion is carried. All right. Now we are moving into the public meeting concerning planning applications. So at this time, I would like to ask council for a resolution to adjourn its regular meeting in order to convene as a public meeting under sections 34 bracket 12 and 53 bracket 5 of the Planning Act. And I'd like to call the vote, please. So motion is Councillor Lockie, seconded by Councillor Crockett, and all in favor. That motion is carried. Okay, the purpose of this public meeting is to consider consent application B6-23 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z7-23 as submitted by 1732435 Ontario Limited, care of Pat and Jane Elliott applicant for the property located at 21699 Heritage Road. And I believe Ms. Kurtz is looking after this one. So can you provide us with your overview? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. My name is Alana Cortez, and I'm a planner with the County of Middlesex, and I provide planning advisory services to Thames Center. So the purpose of the consent application is to facilitate the disposal of a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation. The purpose of the rezoning application is to rezone the balance of the farm to prohibit any new residential use consistent with provincial policy. So the subject property is a 98.5 acre farm located on the west side of Heritage Road, south of Thorndale Road, east of the village of Thorndale. The property is used primarily for the cultivation of field crops. The farm contains a single detached dwelling, an accessory building in the form of a detached garage, and farm buildings including a barn, silo, and grain bins. The dwelling is serviced by private well and septic system. The lands to be severed would have a frontage of approximately 131 feet and an area of approximately 1 acre. The lands to be retained would have an area of approximately 97.5 acres. The applicants advise the barn, silo, and grain bins are to be removed. The lands are designated agricultural and protection area according to the Thames Center official plan and are zoned agricultural and environmental protection according to the Thames Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. So planning staff have conducted our analysis as noted in the report. The provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, and Thames Center official plan generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas for a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation, provided that criteria has been satisfied. As noted in the planning report, staff are satisfied that the criteria has been generally met. Any issues regarding the location of septic system and the potable well, removal of buildings can be addressed through conditions of consent. As mentioned, to prohibit any future residential use of the lands to be retained, a site-specific agricultural A-45 zone is being requested, and the land zoned environmental protection would remain unchanged. Planning staff are satisfied that the subject applications are consistent with provincial policy and in conformity with the county and Thames Center official plans. In regards to agency comments received during the circulation of the subject applications, the county engineer, Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, Hydro One, and the Director of Public Works indicated no concerns or comments. The drainage superintendent advised drainage reassessments will be required. Enbridge advised there are service lines running within the area which may or may not be affected by the proposed severance. Should there be the need to terminate and relocate a service line due to the severance, this shall be at the cost of the property owner. Building Services recommends that the owner provide evidence which confirms that the septic system will be wholly contained on the parcel with the dwelling, that the well be confirmed to be located on the residential parcel, and that the subject lands conform with the municipality's property standards bylaw, including removal of any debris, metal, and derelict vehicles. No public comments have been received to date. It is planning staff's recommendation that consent application B6-23 be approved, subject to the 10 conditions noted in the report for the reasons outlined in the report. And also that zoning bylaw amendment application Z7-23 be approved in principle, and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration at a future meeting. Thank you. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cortez. The applicant is not in the room, or is she coming in on Zoom? No, not at this time then. Okay, is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak to this issue? Okay. So, does any member of council have any questions? None? Okay. All right. At this time, then, I will advise that the public meeting portion of this application is now closed. So thank you to all of those in attendance. And I will advise now that the council will consider all comments received when making its final decision on the application. If there's no further discussion, we can proceed with the adjournment of the public meeting, and council can make their decision on the application. So at this time, I will ask for a resolution from council to adjourn the public meeting and reconvene to consider the application. Yes, Deputy Mayor Smybert, and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? All right, that motion is carried. So council has two decisions to make, one concerning consent and one for zoning. So at this time, I would like to ask council for a mover and a seconder on the recommended motion, which is to approve consent application B6-23. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lockie and Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Okay, and the same for a mover and a seconder on the recommended motion, which is to approve the zoning bylaw amendment application Z7-23. Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? All right, that motion is carried. Thank you. Continuing on then, we will move on to zoning application Z8-23. And I will ask council for a resolution to adjourn the regular meeting in order to convene as a public meeting under sections 34(12) of the Planning Act. And I called vote. Deputy Mayor Smybert, seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? And the purpose of this part of the public meeting is to consider zoning bylaw amendment application Z8-23 as submitted by Johannes Pepping and Shelley Pepping, applicant, and Zelinka Priamo Limited, care of Matt Litwinchuk, agent, for the property located at 5030 Westchester Bourne, also known as County Road 74. Director Bancroft, are you handling this one? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this application is to rezone the subject property from the institutional zone to a site-specific institutional zone to permit a single detached dwelling along with a private elementary school, a private secondary school, in addition to the uses permitted under the parent institutional zone. In terms of background, the subject property, it's a 1 acre parcel of land located on the east side of Westchester Bourne, just south of Westminster Drive. The property contains a single detached dwelling, which is serviced by a well and septic system. And the lands are designated agricultural under the official plan, and they're zoned for institutional purposes. And according to the applicant's agent, the existing dwelling is a 1-story building originally used as a 1-room schoolhouse. This rezoning is being sought, Your Worship, to allow the existing dwelling to be converted into a private school to accommodate elementary and secondary students. And although the lands are zoned for institutional purposes, they unfortunately don't allow an elementary and or secondary school when it's used for private reasons. So only public schools are allowed under the existing zoning. Hence, this amendment is being requested. Also, the applicant's agent is requesting that the existing single detached dwelling be included as a permitted use on the subject lands in the event that the proposed private school ceases operating. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, as noted in my report. And the provincial policy statement and the County of Middlesex official plan recognize that the subject lands, they're located in a prime agricultural area where agricultural uses prevail. But at the same time, those policy documents are not offended by existing non-farm uses located in a prime agricultural area. Also, under the Thames Centre official plan, as I mentioned, these lands are designated agricultural, and on lands outside designated settlement areas, the official plan states that only reasonable expansions to existing institutional uses on existing lots shall be allowed without an amendment to the plan. But considering that the lands are zoned for institutional purposes, which does allow for a wide range of permitted uses as of right, which includes a day nursery, a retirement home, a music school, or a commercial school. The official plan is not offended, in my opinion, by the subject proposal, considering the technical amendment that is being sought to allow the operation of a private elementary and secondary school. Also, Your Worship, in terms of the evaluation criteria used for zoning bylaw amendment applications, those are all listed in my report. And I'm satisfied that the evaluation criteria has been met, or it's capable of being met through either a change of use permit, which would be necessary to convert the existing building into a school, or also through the site plan approval process, which will be required. In terms of unacceptable adverse impacts on neighboring lands, I'm satisfied that that would not occur based on the subject proposal. We do have an existing livestock operation in the area. However, it is not offended by what is being proposed, considering we've got existing institutional zoning in place, which already affects that livestock facility. So based on the reasons that I mentioned, I am satisfied, Your Worship, that this proposal would be consistent with provincial policy, conforms with the county official plan, and also the Thames Centre official plan. In terms of comments received during the circulation of the proposal, the county engineer has indicated that issues, any concerns that he has will be addressed as part of the site plan approval process. From the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, they have no objection. From our Director of Public Works and our Drainage Superintendent, they have no comment. From our Chief Building Official, he's indicated that no objection. However, a change of use permit will be required under the Ontario Building Code, as well as an architect's review. He also notes that the septic system will need to be reviewed to confirm that it is adequate to service the proposed use, which may require approval by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, depending on the proposed sewage flows. I have no responses received to date from the public. So it is my recommendation. I'm actually proposing a revised recommendation, Your Worship, based on discussions with the applicant's agent. They are supportive of staff's revised recommendation, which includes approval in principle of the zoning bylaw amendment, and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary amendment for consideration at the next meeting, subject to a holding symbol. And this would allow the proposed purchasers to move ahead with the purchase of the property, considering it's my understanding that this zone change is a condition of sale of the property. And holding would only be removed from the lands, from the zoning of the lands, Your Worship, upon the applicants entering into site plan approval with the municipality. So that is my submission for you this evening. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Is the applicant or a representative here?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay.
I will promote Harry Frucius over. He is the agent.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. My name is
I
Harry.
believe you're on mute, maybe.
Can you hear me now?
We can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Sir, could you maybe try changing your microphone input on the
Yes.
Zoom?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
There might be a little symbol of a microphone with a stroke through it. And if, no, just audio issues.
Can you hear me now?
Have you checked to see if your microphone is on, sir?
It's on.
Oh, it is on, okay.
It's working from my end.
Technical glitch. Technology is great when it works.
Can you hear me now?
So are we good to go now?
Can you hear me now?
You can hear us? Gee,
I
we
can,
still
I can
can't.
hear you, yes.
Okay, you can hear us, but we're still not being able to hear you.
Hear me now?
Let's do it this way then. Do you have any additional information that you needed to add? Okay, you do.
Can you hear me now? No.
We're going to try an alternate and maybe get a call in. Might take us a minute here. The Zoom email that you would have received would have had a call or like a phone number in it as well. If you still have that, you could try that number.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. You entered 22906. This meeting ID not exist. Please re-enter ID by pound. You entered 881537. This meeting ID does not exist. Please re-enter the meeting. You entered 881591311356. This meeting ID does not exist. Goodbye.
Excuse me, sir, could you try speaking again and see if it works?
Can you hear me now?
No, it's still not. Okay, we're going to try again. Sorry for all this.
It won't work by phone either.
To Zoom, enter your meeting ID. You entered 881591311356. This meeting ID does not exist.
Okay,
Meeting ID or
I think we're good to go on this. And do you try speaking just to make sure we've got you?
not exist.
I think you can hang up on the
Phone
call.
doesn't work either.
Okay, well now we're starting to hear you. So,
You can hear me now?
yes, we can hear you now. But something else has happened in the meantime. So terribly sorry here.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay.
We
Okay,
just have another little technical issue here that we're trying to sort out.
Okay. Unfortunately, I can't get through by phone either. It's not accepting the passcode.
Okay. All right, we're going to try to bring you back in again.
And your voice is really fuzzy right now. I can barely make out what you're saying either,
Oh,
Your Worship.
okay.
But everything, my microphone tests fine on my end. I guess you just can't hear me for some reason, but I'll do the best I can. So you can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We're just trying one other thing here. Are you hearing us okay?
I'm having a hard time hearing you now. Your words are fuzzy, very fuzzy. I can try to rejoin again if that's okay.
We can hear you, so if we can just sort this out, just one moment, please.
Okay.
Can you hear us better now, sir?
Much better. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, but we've lost your voice again. We can't hear you. Thanks for your patience. We're just trying to sort this out.
Can you hear us better now, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think. Okay, so I will start and hopefully we can.
Okay, I'll go ahead when you're ready.
But yeah, well, I can't hear you that well now, but I'll keep talking until you tell me to stop if you can't hear me.
Sure, that's good.
So thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Worship. My name is Harry Frusios. I'm with Zelenka Priamo Limited. We're the agents for the landowner and the future purchasers of the lands. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening virtually. We're just here to basically say that we're in support of the amended staff recommendation by Mr. Bancroft. And I want to thank him for his cooperation and assistance throughout this process. This is a technical amendment, as Mr. Bancroft noted. The school use is already a permitted use, and all we're doing is asking you to recognize that it's going to be a private elementary and secondary school, together with recognizing the existing single attached dwelling use. I just wanted to point out that Father Jeremy Saunders, who is the pastor for Our Lady of Victory Church, who will be the operator of the school, is in attendance this evening and would like to speak to you on behalf of this application. So I'll turn it over to Father Saunders right now, but I will remain on in case you have any questions about the application. Thank you. And again, I apologize for any inconvenience.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for your patience. So I'm sorry, I missed the name. Father Saunders, is it? Okay. Would you like to just state your name for the record, since we're recording there's a
Yes, thank you.
you're on. And yes.
Yes, okay.
There
Thank
you
you,
go.
Your Worship.
And just your address as well, please.
I'm Father Jeremy Saunders. My address is 1715 Dundas Street, London, Ontario, N5W3E1.
Thank you very much. Go
So,
ahead.
Thank you to Harry and also to the staff. As he mentioned, we're the future, hopefully the purchasers of this property. We do have an offering on the property, and we are the occasion for this amendment request. We are hoping to operate a private school. So we have a church on the east side of London. We've been there a lot of years, and we've been considering over the last few years opening the private school. It became possible for us to do so this year. And earlier on the same time, we saw this property come up, and we were delighted to find a school property zoned institutionally and available in Thames Centre. This was the area that we had been looking. We're well rooted in the area. I have quite a few people who have come here tonight to support me. I think probably the majority of the people in the room here to support me. Some of them are longtime residents of Thames Centre. Though we're in London, most of our parish is from outside the city. So we do have a lot of rural residents, etc. And so we're happy to find this institution. We want to have a rural setting for a private school. And so we are looking for this amendment. We're asking council for this amendment to be able to operate the private school. We were pleased to find the institutional zoning. Then, as was mentioned by the staff, we saw that it had public school zoning and institutional, but didn't have that private amendment. So it will be a small private school, so minimal impact in that regard. We're talking 25 to 30 students to start, and maybe a small increase, but nothing really significant, as the capacity of the building is limited for the time being. So we wouldn't be seeing a huge impact, huge amount of traffic, anything like that. One thing that was mentioned by the staff, and we appreciate their work on this regard, is that we do have a pending offer on the property. We have a lot of balls to juggle with getting in the Ministry of Education, teachers, enrollment, etc. So time is of an issue so we would like council to please consider that factor for us as well, because it is conditioned on the zoning to get the property. But a lot of chicken and egg situations for us here. So I'd be very, very happy to answer any questions council may have for me. And also, of course, we may have Harry still with us to answer questions as well on the more technical end of things, as he's been handling that side for us.
Thank you. Just before we go to any questions from council, is there anyone else, either in the room or online, who wishes to speak to the issue? Hopefully, Mr. Marcel. It's okay.
So my name is Marcel Meyer. I'm the farmer that borders the old North Red Piers School, and just want to welcome the potential new neighbor and neighbors. I have no complaints, no concerns, just want to identify that there's a farming operation behind.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Is there anyone else, either virtually or in the room? Okay. All right, at this moment, then I'll ask for council if they have any questions that they would like to ask. Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
Thank you. I did have a question with respect to the number of students, but you've already addressed that, so thank you. And transportation, so how would the students get to this particular location? Are they driving themselves, or is some kind of mode of transportation take them there?
Primarily their parents, yeah, their families would bring in them, occasionally carpooling between the families. Not likely many students. We only have a few students in the upper grades, at least at the current moment, so there wouldn't be too many students driving themselves. That would be very minimal.
Okay.
And we did a bit of a pilot project at our location in London this year, and it was the parents typically driving the students in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Councillor Crockett?
Kind of along those lines, I actually had one of your parishioners send me a note back in February, Mr. Michael Gregory, and I expressed that my concern actually laid with not the rezoning application, but on this location of the school being on a county road, and just noticing that the traffic would be increased by having a school in that area. But I will then I reached out to our director of planning, and as you can see in the application, the county engineer will have his say through the zoning amendment. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yes, I believe Harry has been in touch with the county. We were aware of that. My apologies. I believe Harry has been in contact with the county engineer as well. And we're aware that's always a concern, especially with schools. Right now, we're talking 10 families. So maybe 7 to 12 cars a day. And staff is fairly minimal. So, 7 to 12, 15 cars a day would be the traffic we're looking at. And it would be typically our starting times are a little later than most schools because of the driving in for the parents. So we wouldn't necessarily be at the same starting time as the higher volumes of traffic as well. This year we started at 9:30 a.m. So hopefully it would not, we would hope it wouldn't cause a traffic issue.
Good. Any other questions from council? Okay. Seeing none, then I will advise that the public meeting portion of this application is now closed. And again, I advise that I want to thank all the people in attendance and for participating virtually, bugs and all. And thank you for your input. I'd like to advise that the council will consider all comments received when making its final decision on the application. And if there's no other discussion, we can proceed with the adjournment of the public meeting and council can make their decision on this application. So may I have a resolution to adjourn the public portion of this. Councillor Lockie, seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyberg. All in favor? That motion is carried then. Thank you. So I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder for the revised recommended motion for bylaw amendment application Z823. A mover, Councillor Crockett, seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks for your attendance. Okay, then we will move on to the next application, an application for temporary use in zoning bylaw amendment Z9-23. I'd like to ask council for a resolution to adjourn the regular meeting in order to reconvene as a public meeting under sections 34(12) of the Planning Act. Okay, Deputy Mayor Smyber. Seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Motion is carried. Purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application for temporary use in zoning bylaw amendment Z9-23 as submitted by Jason Irwin, the applicant, for the property located at 4313 Trafalgar Street. I believe Ms. Curtis is handling this one. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this application is to permit the continued occupancy of an existing single detached dwelling on the property for up to 3 years while a new single detached dwelling is being constructed, subject to a reduced side yard setback, as well as to rezone the property to permit an additional residential unit, or ARU, which is otherwise not permitted. So the subject property is a 46-acre farm located on the south side of Trafalgar Street on the west side of Shaw Road. The property is primarily used for agricultural purposes in the form of field crop cultivation. The farm contains a single detached dwelling and farm buildings in the form of a drive shed and Quonset structure. The dwelling is serviced by private well and septic system. The lands are designated agricultural according to the Thames Center official plan and zoned agricultural according to the Thames Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to construct a new single detached dwelling with a reduced side yard setback of 10.7 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a 15-meter setback, while the existing dwelling remains for up to 3 years or 1 year following the occupancy of the new dwelling, whichever comes first. So typically, temporary use zoning would require the existing dwelling to be removed from the land upon the expiration of a 3-year period or 6 months after the occupancy of the new single detached dwelling, whichever occurs first. However, the applicant has requested that the existing dwelling be permitted for up to 1 year, regardless of the occupancy of the new dwelling, to continue to provide housing for a family member. The applicant is also proposing to construct a future detached garage containing an ARU on the second story, having an area of approximately 68 square meters, which is otherwise not permitted. So planning staff have conducted our analysis as outlined in the report. The Thames Center official plan allows temporary uses for up to 3 years, subject to evaluation criteria. Staff believe the request to allow the existing dwelling to remain for 1 year after completion is fair and reasonable, considering the existing dwelling will be providing housing for a family member. In all, staff are satisfied that the criteria has been met or is capable of being met by having the owner enter into an agreement with the municipality. A draft agreement has been attached to the planning report and includes the requirement for the payment of a $5,000 security deposit due at the time of the issuance of a building permit. The security deposit can be refunded to the owner once the existing dwelling has been removed. The new dwelling is proposed to be constructed west of the existing dwelling with a reduced side yard setback of 10.7 meters compared to the required 15 meters. The requested setback can be considered appropriate as the property to the west is vacant farmland and would still allow the applicant to maintain the proposed dwelling from his property without encroaching onto the neighboring farm. In regards to the ARU, the provincial policy statement and the County of Middlesex official plan provide policy direction to encourage an appropriate range and mix of housing types, including additional residential units, to meet the long-term needs of the community. Thames Center's official plan also provides policy direction to allow the addition of second dwelling units, now referred to as ARUs, including in agricultural areas, provided that they are capable of being appropriately serviced. The official plan also notes that any regulation concerning second units shall limit the size of the second unit to ensure it remains clearly secondary to the primary dwelling unit, and furthermore, compliance with the Ontario Building Code shall be required. Those matters are capable of being addressed at the time of the issuance of the building permit and through the zoning regulations that limit the size of the ARU. The Thames Center official plan also provides criteria used to evaluate zoning bylaw amendment requests. These criteria include soil and drainage conditions, servicing, adequacy of the road to accommodate the development, and a few others indicated in the report. Planning staff are satisfied that the criteria has been met or is capable of being met during the building permit process, and that the zoning bylaw amendment would be consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to both county and Thames Center official plans. In regards to agency comments received for this application, no concerns or objections were noted by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, the Director of Public Works, and the Drainage Superintendent. Building Services advised no objection to the temporary use, although recommends that sufficient security be taken to ensure the removal of the existing house. The county engineer advised no comment as no additional access is proposed. No public comments have been received to date. It is planning staff's recommendation, as outlined in the report, that application for temporary use zoning Z9-23 be approved in principle, and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary bylaw for council's consideration once the attached agreement has been executed by the applicant, and that zoning bylaw amendment application Z9-23 be approved in principle, and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration at the next regular council meeting. Thank you. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is the applicant in the room, Mr. Erman? Would you like to provide any more information? Certainly come and then just turn on your speaker. There's a little button in the middle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your consideration, Your Worship. And I appreciate the staff's team and guiding us through this process. So yeah, we've been, the farm's been our family for over 165 years. My wife and I recently purchased it, and we're looking at continuing on the legacy of being in the community and contributing to the community. Family's been on fair boards before throughout history. I'm on the Lions Club, so we're part of the community and involved. So. As far as the ARU, we have a son. He's looking at, it's obviously difficult with young kids getting into the housing market. So we're looking at helping them out.
Great. Sound like a great parent. Out of the basement, but above.
There you go.
It all works.
Far enough away.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone coming in virtually who wishes to speak to the issue?
We had none registered, Your Worship.
Oh, okay, thanks very much. So then, thanks very much, Mr. Irwin. That's great. Does council have any questions they would like to ask? Oops, Deputy Mayor Smybert.
But just a yes or no would suffice. But Mr. Owen, I understand that you've read the agreement. You don't have any concerns with the agreement that's been drafted?
Thank you.
No, we have no disagreement at this
Okay.
point.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. No other questions from council then? Okay, well, then in this, I'll advise that the public meeting portion of this application is now closed. And I'd like to thank you for your attendance here this evening. Again, I advise that council will consider all comments and received when making its final decision on the application. So if there's no further discussion, we can proceed with the adjournment of the public meeting, and council can make their decision on the application. So at this point, I'll ask council for a resolution to adjourn the public meeting and reconvene to consider the application. Okay, moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? All right, that motion carries. Thank you. So council, I'd like a mover and a seconder on the recommended motion for the application for temporary use and zoning bylaw amendment application Z9-23. A move, Deputy Mayor Smybert, seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, moving along. This is for a revised application. So I will at this point ask council for a resolution to adjourn the regular meeting in order to convene as a public meeting under sections 3(4) brackets 12 of the Planning Act. So a mover, please. And a seconder. Councillor Lockie. Deputy Mayor Smythe, all in favor? Thank you very much. That motion carries. Okay, the purpose of this public meeting is to consider a revised application for zoning bylaw amendment Z 19-22 as submitted by 2448021 Ontario Inc. Applicant Jason Van Ryelbeck and Jessica Howe as the agent for property located at 21077 Purple Hill Road. Mr. Bancroft, okay, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose and effect of this application is to rezone the subject lands from the extractive industrial M3 zone to an agricultural A zone to allow the construction of a new single detached dwelling to replace the existing dwelling and to recognize the after use of the lands considering the gravel pit has ceased operations with the pit license recently surrendered. The subject property, it is 90 acres in size and it's situated on the west side of Purple Hill Road, north of Dundas Street, near the CP Railway. The lands are occupied by a large pond, being a legacy of a recently closed gravel pit, and buildings and structures are limited to a single detached dwelling and a detached garage. The dwelling is privately serviced by a well and septic system, and the lands are designated agricultural and protection area under the official plan, and they're zoned extractive industrial M3 and environmental protection EP. So the applicant's agent intends to purchase the property, remove the existing dwelling with the construction of a new dwelling in the same general location. The application was originally heard at a public meeting of municipal council back in September of 2022, where the application was deferred pending confirmation from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, which is the governing authority for gravel pits, that the gravel pit license has been surrendered. Originally, the applicant requested that a 4-acre residential portion of the property be rezoned, which contains the existing residential use. And at the September 19th public meeting, the previous council approved the rezoning in principle pending confirmation of the gravel pit license being surrendered by the ministry. So more recently, on March of this year, the ministry issued a letter accepting surrender of the license and that the pit operator no longer has any obligations to the property under the Aggregate Resources Act. The applicant's agent subsequently revised the rezoning application to request the rezoning for the entire formal gravel pit lands, hence the position that we're in today. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and the provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, and the Thames Centre official plan all recognize the fact that this area is a prime agricultural area where agricultural uses prevail. And considering that there's no net increase from a residential standpoint and that an existing dwelling is to be replaced with a new dwelling, those policies are not offended by what is being proposed. Also, under the Thames Centre official plan, it includes evaluation criteria necessary when council considers a zoning bylaw amendment. I've gone through that evaluation criteria as noted in my report, and I'm satisfied that that criteria has been addressed or it's capable of being addressed at the building permit stage. I should also point out that no adverse impacts are anticipated for the residential development, considering the site of the proposed dwelling has significant separation distance from the woodlot that's also situated on the property in the southwest corner of the lands. Also, that the area to accommodate the proposed dwelling is set back at least 300 meters away from the CN Railway. For that, and also the reasons outlined in my report, I am satisfied that this application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and is in conformity with the county and Thames Centre official plans. In terms of agency comments from the county engineer, they have no comment. The drainage superintendent, no comment. And subsequent to the circulation of my report, I did receive feedback from our chief building official, who has no objection, and also from CPR, or the Canadian Pacific Railway. They are recommending that a standard warning clause be included in all property and tenancy agreements, as well as offers of purchase and sale. Considering that this is a recommendation and not a requirement, staff feels that this recommendation is onerous and entirely unnecessary, considering the site of the proposed reconstruction of the new dwelling is beyond 300 meters of the railway line. And that's important to note because within 300 meters, there's the potential for impacts in terms of noise and vibration. And considering that this application is beyond that threshold, that recommendation by the Canadian Pacific Railway is unnecessary, in my opinion. No responses have been received from the public to date. So it's my recommendation, Your Worship, that this application for zoning bylaw amendment as revised be approved and that the implementing bylaw be passed by council. Thank you. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Is the applicant in the room and wishing to speak? Anyone on the call?
I do have a member of the public, Mike Krejci. I'm going to just promote him.
Certainly.
Sorry, I've got no issues.
Oh, okay. Thanks very much. All right. Just observing. Okay, so does council have any questions or concerns regarding the application? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a question in regards to it being a formal gravel pit and how that rezoning or essentially being reverted back to agriculture from industrial M3 would work. Can it be farmed, or what kind of restrictions are part of that?
Through Your Worship, I think, based on the air photo, I think the ability to farm the property from a conventional standpoint in terms of the raising of crops, I don't think that's necessarily feasible. At the same time, the raising of fish, I guess, could be a possibility, which is actually a form of agriculture. The term aquaculture in terms of raising of fish is included as part of the agriculture definition. But at the same time, I'm certainly not aware of anything proposed by the applicant in that regard.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, seeing none, then I'd like to thank everyone. And I will advise again that council will consider all comments received when making its final decision on the application, and that the public meeting portion of this application is now closed. If there's no further discussion, we can proceed with adjournment of the public meeting and council can make their decision on the application. So seeing none, that I will ask council for a resolution to adjourn the public meeting and reconvene to consider the application. So I've had someone to move that. Councillor Crockett, seconded by Deputy Mayor Smiber. All in favor? Okay, motion is carried. So the decision is, I'm going to ask for council to move and a seconder on the recommended motion for revised application for zoning bylaw amendment Z19-22. So someone to move the motion. Deputy Mayor Smiber, seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. So the next item is the proposed community infrastructure and housing accelerator order 1-23 on behalf of Fari Farming Corporation. So I'm going to ask the council for a resolution to adjourn the regular meeting and in order to convene as a public meeting. Mover, please. Councillor Lockie, seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Okay, that motion is carried. The purpose of this public meeting is to consider a proposed community infrastructure and housing accelerator order, otherwise known as a CHIO, as submitted by Fari Farming Corporation as owner and Escher Planning, Inc. and Municipal Solutions, agent for the property located at 4453 Breen Road in Thames Center. And Director Bancroft, I believe you're on this one.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I just wanted to provide a presentation and overview in terms of what is being proposed, not only for council's benefit, but also for the public. The subject property, it's located on the south side of Breen Road and east of Putnam Road, which is County Road 30, backing onto Highway 401. This property is a 92-acre parcel. It's used for farming purposes, primarily for the raising of crops, but the farm also contains a number of poultry barns. Under the provincial policy statement, this property is located within a prime agricultural area, comprised of prime agricultural land. And under the County of Middlesex official plan, likewise, the lands are designated within the agricultural areas designation, and similarly designated for farming purposes under the Thames Center official plan. And from a zoning standpoint, also zoned for agricultural purposes under the A zone. Breen Road across the frontage of the subject lands is a gravel road, and it's subject to load restrictions during the spring. And given potential hazards associated with the railway line in proximity to the intersection of Putnam Road and Breen Road, based on anticipated traffic as a result of future industrial development in the area, the County of Middlesex has retained an outside consultant to undertake a study, and recommended road improvements would be cost shared amongst property owners in the area, including Farhi, who owns lands within the rural industrial designation. And that would apply to lands essentially located west of the subject lands. But in terms of the proposal itself, there has been a report prepared by Escher Planning, Inc. and Municipal Solutions on behalf of Farhi Holdings Corporation in terms of the proposed order which is being requested. And that's in response to recent inquiries for a site that could accommodate 1 million square feet of dry industrial uses in the form of warehousing and logistics or trucking facilities. This order is being requested to allow tri-industry, which is otherwise not permitted under the existing zoning. And this order request would allow for a change in zoning and provide an exemption from having to be consistent with the provincial policy statement or having to conform with municipal official plans. So procedurally, following this public meeting of municipal council, the intent is that staff would bring forward a report for council's consideration, which would provide a summary of all comments received, either written comments or comments provided through this public meeting, which would be presented at a future meeting of council for council's consideration. In order for this request to move forward, the requested order, there would need to be a resolution from council in support of the request. And if that was to happen, then the request would move forward to the Ministry of the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for consideration. Should this request not be supported by council, then the request would fall short in terms of being forwarded to the ministry. That would simply be, the minister. If not supported by council, then that would be the end of this process. In the circulation of the notice to agencies and the public, I just wanted to indicate, Your Worship, that we did receive a number of responses from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. They indicated that as part of the public consultation process, municipalities are required to engage with Indigenous communities and consider their interests prior to submitting a request to the minister. The ministry has noted that in review of the request, they will require a description of the consultation undertaking and by the municipality, including engagement with Indigenous communities. From the county engineer, he's indicated that the owner should be notified that a contribution to the required safety improvements of the railway crossing and the Breen Road, Putnam Road intersection will be required as a condition of development. From the Ministry of Transportation, they have provided some comprehensive comments insofar as the various approvals that would be required by that ministry, including a building and land use permit, subject to the applicant submitting an acceptable site plan, grading plan, and drainage plan, erosion control plan. Also the need for security fencing extending along the entire southern boundary of the site adjacent to the Highway 401. Also, the need for submission of a stormwater management plan for the ministry's consideration of approval, and also a traffic impact study, as well as a sign permit. That's also included as one of their requirements. From the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, they have no objection. From our chief building official, no objection. From our drainage superintendent, he's noted that the applicant should be aware that the subject lands have multiple municipal drains running through the property, which service upstream lands. Any change to this land use would have to account for the existing drains. And if alterations are required, a Section 78 permit for improvement under the Drainage Act would be required. From Alan Grinberg, who is principal of Avison Young, they're a commercial real estate firm. They provided a letter of support advising that they strongly support this request for an order to effectively rezone the land to industrial. We also have a similar letter that was received by CBRE, another commercial real estate firm, indicate that they strongly support this request for shovel-ready serviced industrial land. I should qualify the fact that there are no municipal services in the area, Your Worship. So any development would require private servicing in terms of potable water supply and private sanitary sewage disposal. Also from as part of our consultation to Indigenous communities, we did receive feedback from the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, and they have indicated minimal concerns with the subject proposal. And then lastly, from the Middlesex Federation of Agriculture, I believe their letter was shared with members of council in advance of this meeting. Their president has provided a letter of objection in response to the Farhi request. So it is my recommendation, Your Worship, as noted in my report, that it be received for information and that I provide a subsequent report summarizing the consultation feedback along with a recommendation for council's consideration at a future meeting. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft. Is anyone coming in on this, the agent or?
Yes,
the
Your Worship, I have two people. I'm just going to move over.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Ms. Horton. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's Melanie Horton from Escher Planning. Good evening, Your Worship, the council and staff. And thank you very much, Mr. Bancroft, for the overview. Mark's provided a very thorough discussion on the proposal. And as you recall, you saw me a few weeks ago with a presentation as well. There's just 2 points I want to make and then happy to answer questions. My colleague, John Mutton from Municipal Solutions, is also available if there are questions about the process. He's more familiar with the provincial components than I am. But the 2 points I wanted to make are, firstly, as I had mentioned in the initial presentation, the property was identified in the township's 401 corridor study a number of years ago. There was an effort to study to look at potential industrial sites along the 401 corridor for employment uses. And this was one of those areas. The second thing, and I think this is very important. It's a point that Mark made in his presentation, and the point is that the provincial policy statement would restrict this zoning from happening if it were to go through the normal process. So there's a question about why we wouldn't just apply for a zoning bylaw amendment. The province is the only authority that would have the ability to override that policy and allow for the conversion to employment uses. And that's the reason why this process, the CHIA order, is being requested. So happy to answer any questions that you might have, and thanks again for making the time this evening.
Thanks very much. Did Mr. Mutton want to come in as well?
Hi there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. And we do the provincial end of the MZOs. We are currently doing, or have done, about 20 MZOs and CHIAs with respect to the Indigenous component. We bring that aspect forward as well. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. So, does any member of council have any questions that they'd like to ask? Councilor Lockie? Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. So the public meeting portion of this meeting is now closed. So one moment, please.
Yeah, just
Wait. We're doing something slightly different, so bear with us for a sec here. My apologies. So anyone in the council chambers who would like to speak to this issue? Mr. Colvin. Do you want to? Just state your name and your municipal address.
Thank you. I guess I'll start first. I'm Crispin Colvin, 21779 Cherry Hill Road, Thorndale, Ontario, NOM 2P0. First of all, an MZO, or in this case, a CHIO, as you refer to it, is subject to a municipal request. So I would urge you, first of all, do not request this. And Melanie just mentioned briefly that this land was looked at in the past, and it may well have been when I was on council, actually, at the time. We looked at large parcels of land, and she didn't say that it was not put in. And it was not put in for a reason, because it's agricultural land and we're an agricultural municipality. And it was well beyond the scope of putting land in at that time. And it still remains such. That parcel is in an agricultural area surrounded by agricultural lands. So what happens when you do this? It exempts all the planning requests and all the planning related approvals. It overrides all provincial plans. It will override the PPS, as Melanie mentioned, and it overrides your own municipal official plan. And it can impose conditions on the municipality that do not address environmental assessments as well. So the land gets taken out of use. There's no planning, no appeals, and no environmental assessments necessary. So the municipality could be asked to look at exemptions or look at reasons why it needs to be done. So in effect, you would be asked by the government to override your own official plan and justify overriding your own official plan. It seems a bit wrong to my way of thinking. So you're not obligated, just because you receive a request for this to have a housing accelerator order, you are not obligated to act on it and to approve it. The Bill 109 ensures that the request by council is consistent with provincial plans and the PPS. So I would urge you to be consistent with your official plan and the provincial policy statements. And the Ontario Provincial Planners Institute, when the bill was being forwarded to floated and public consultations, mentioned a lack of accountability that would exist if these get put through. And that's been proven time and again when they have been put through. So you have the ability to make a correct decision on this, or you have the ability to request a minister's order and make a bad decision by turning good farmland into a warehouse. And I think that you will do the right thing. I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you, Crispin.
Thank you, Crispin. Jason O'Neill. I'm here as the president of the Middlesex Federation of Agriculture, 13921 16 Mile Road, Denfield, N0M1P0. The Federation of Agriculture was formed in 1939 and represents the voice of agriculture in the local community. The MFA advocates on behalf of over 1,900 Middlesex County farm families on local agricultural issues and works to advance agriculture in the rural community through partnership, education, and advocacy. This order was recently brought to our attention, and the MFA firmly believes that the preservation of our productive agricultural lands for the ability to produce food, fiber, and fuel is in Ontario's best interest. To that end, we believe the farmland being discussed in this application should not be rezoned for other uses, but instead continue to be used productively to provide food, fiber, and fuels to meet the community, province, country, and world needs of the future. With the support of the PPS and the recent official plan study confirming Thames Centre is not in need of more industrial land, we strongly recommend Thames Centre deny the application. The MFA believes the highest and best use of Ontario's arable land is for agriculture. Land capable of supporting agricultural activities is a finite, strategic, non-renewable resource worthy of preserving for its ability to provide safe, affordable, and sustainable food, fiber, and fuel for Ontario, Canada, and the world. The world's population is projected to rise to 9.8 billion by 2050, underlining the need to keep Ontario's highly productive agricultural land producing food. We thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak to the issue? Would you like to come forward and state your name and your municipal address? The mic is in the middle.
Dave Coleman from 399 Edgeworth Avenue in London. My father owns a property at 4737 Breen Road, and I strongly object to this. What is going to happen to that concession? That's it.
That's it. Okay, well, that's good. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak to the issue as well? And no one online who wants to come in as well? Okay. All right. So now we can ask council for their comments or questions. Councillor Lockie?
Through your worship to Director Bancroft, I'm just looking for some clarification regarding the improvements to the road, that the cost would be shared amongst the property owners in the area. So are these changes that would need to be done to the road to facilitate this new development that would be passed along the other residents on the road?
Through you, your worship, I'm not sure, Councillor Lockie, if you've got the staff report in front of you.
Yes.
Okay, could I get you to refer to the location map that's
Okay.
included?
Oh, sorry, I'm in the proposal. So I'm on section 2 in the background on the last paragraph.
Okay, but could you go to page 39 of the agenda?
Okay. Page 39. Sorry, the version that I have doesn't have the page numbers. Do you have it?
Okay, and that's through your worship, that's fine. I was just trying to be as descriptive as possible in terms of referring to the map because I think it's easier to
Okay, yeah,
explain.
Yeah.
But in the absence of the map, I just wanted to point out that those intersection improvements that are warranted are based on opportunities that are available from an industrial development standpoint for lands that are currently designated for rural industrial purposes. So that would include lands west of the subject property that are not subject to this CHIA request, those existing vacant parcels of land that are closer to Putnam Road. So because of the potential to accommodate industrial uses for those lands, that has triggered the need for the study to be conducted so that we can have some intersection improvements done to address the concerns associated with the existing railway crossing and its proximity to the Putnam Road and Breen Road intersection. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe Councillor Heeman wanted in to ask a question. Are you there, Tom?
Can you hear me?
Can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
I was just wondering if the applicant has any interested party actually interested in this land, because my understanding of the process is that it's to accelerate development proposals, not to assist in land speculation. And if there's no actual joint purchaser or proposal in place, this would be speculation and not actually advancing any development and not appropriate for this mechanism.
Thank you, Councillor Heeman. Would the agent like to speak to this question?
Yes, thank you. Through your worship, as Mark indicated in his presentation and as I did in mine, the information I have from the owner, Fari Holdings Corporation, that there have been numerous inquiries from companies looking specifically for 1 million square feet of dry industrial space. So I don't have the details or if there's letters of intent, but the companies, there are several companies that have approached Fari to see if they have suitable land that would accommodate that size and that scale of a dry industrial use in the form of warehousing or distribution. So it's not a matter of speculation. As a professional planner, I wouldn't be involved in bringing something forward if it was just on a speculative basis. So it's based on a demand. I think that's also described in the letters from CBRE and Robinson Young.
No proposed agreement. There's not actually a development to be advanced.
Through your worship, with respect, I would suggest that if there are discussions with potential developments, those are confidential at this time. And if there's no ability to host the proposed employment use, then they can't disclose the nature of those discussions.
Councillor Heyman, I'm still seeing your hand up. Did you have something further?
I'm just wondering if the applicant has any tractors.
I'm sorry, what was that question again?
I'm just wondering if the applicant has any tractors, because I know that farm has a sign that says Far East Farming on a silo. So I just wonder if they had any tractors.
Would you like to answer that question? Or can you?
I'm sure they do. I don't know how much equipment they have or what equipment they have. I'm happy to follow up with you if you like, Councillor Heyman.
All right, thank you. Is that it then, Councillor Heyman? Did you have any others?
Through you, your worship, they do have a number of farms with racehorses and horses in Middlesex County. And as you can appreciate, with the extent of farmland they have, it's uncertain whether they have equipment, but I'm sure that they do.
All right, thank you very much. That's it then, Councillor Heyman?
Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Mybert.
Thank you, Mayor McMillan. I do want to thank MFA for being here tonight. I was surprised that there weren't any comments from your organization, considering it's a fairly significant piece of farmland that we've been taking out of circulation. However, I have since been told by staff that the OFA, MFA, and/or OMAFRA is not circulated on this particular application because of the framework that was put into place. So I really do think we need to change that, because I think it's incumbent upon us, if we're taking agricultural land out of production, that OFA and MFA need to have a voice in that, absolutely. So hoping that after we deal with the planning application, we can change that. I mean, although I do like seeing representatives from MFA here, I'm sure you don't want to come to every single planning meeting. So I think it's important for us after the meeting that we address that, so that with future applications, we will get timely correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Smybert. Anyone else? Oh, Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Since we're all kind of new in navigating this community infrastructure and housing accelerator order, I was just wondering if Mr. Bancroft could clarify whether there's any recourse if we deny and or support this at this time.
Mr. Bancroft?
Yes, so through you, your worship, if council is supportive, then it's a case of a resolution being forwarded to the minister, along with a copy of the draft zoning bylaw amendment for the minister's consideration. If there is no support, on the other hand, by municipal council, then there is no recourse.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions then from members of council? Okay. All right. So at this point then, I would advise that the public meeting portion for this application is now closed. And I'd like to thank you all for your attendance here tonight and those who participated virtually. And I will also advise that council will consider all comments received when making its final decision on the application. And if there is no further discussion, we can proceed with the adjournment of the public meeting and council can make their decision on this application. So at this point, I will ask council for a resolution to adjourn the public meeting and reconvene to consider the application and continue with remaining council deliberations. So someone to Councillor Lockie, seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Councillor Heyman, I don't see your hand. Councillor Heyman? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you?
I vote in favor.
Okay, thank you very much. So, are all in favor? All in favor then? Any objections? No? All right, so the motion carries then. So I will ask council for a mover and a seconder on the recommended motion for the proposed CHIO order.
Your worship, can I just clarify, the wording of the recommendation is not a decision on the application tonight. It's just that the director provide a subsequent report and come back.
Thanks for the clarification. All right. So we still need your Deputy Mayor Smybert then, and seconded by.
Sorry, for just clarification, Sarah, we're just receiving this for
For
information.
me.
So the recommended motion on the agenda is that the report be received for information and that the Director of Planning and Development Services provide a subsequent report summarizing all public and agency comments received, along with a recommendation for council's consideration at a future meeting.
Okay. Thank you to the clerk. I should turn the page over so that I know. All right, Councillor Heyman.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. The mover was, I'm sorry, I lost a train here. Deputy Mayor Smybert. Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Sorry for all the little bugs. We're trying this new system and, you know. All right, thank you. So thank you to all the members of the public who came in to speak to the issue. It's much appreciated.
Mayor McMillan, I was hoping that I could move a motion with
Certainly.
respect to
Yes.
the process that we have in place.
Go ahead.
So I'd like to move that the framework for the proposed community infrastructure and housing accelerator process be revised by ensuring that we provide circulation to OMAFRA and or MFA in the instances where farmland is being affected.
Okay. So the motion is moved. Councillor Crockett, you're seconding it? Okay. All in favor? I see your hand, Councillor Heyman, so that's good. That motion carries then. Thank you. All right. Lots of paperwork here tonight. Okay, so we're now moving on to the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and may require discussion, but no action on the part of council. Consent items are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more item be removed for further action. The motion before us is that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on April the 12th, 2023 be approved as circulated, and that consent agenda items 7.2 through 7.7 be received as information. Someone to move the motion? Councillor Lockie, seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyber. All in favor? Councillor Heman? Great, thank you. All right, the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports of departments. The first one is the Deputy Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm presenting a new policy for Council's consideration with respect to the designation of municipally significant events. So with respect to the special occasion permits for public events, the AGCO requires some applications to submit an official designation from the municipality where the event is taking place, that the event be considered municipally significant. Our current approach under our current municipal alcohol policy defines a municipally significant event as being limited to events that are only run by council, such as Bridgefest. The purpose of this policy is to streamline the process for private groups holding public events so that they can apply for an SOP. Should the application meet the requirements, the proposed policy also outlines a new application process and fee. Should the application made by the private group meet the requirements outlined in the policy, this would give the clerk or designate the ability to issue a letter to the applicant deeming their event municipally significant or not. So the recommended resolution would be that report number clerk-008-23 be received for information, and that the designation of municipally significant events policy be adopted and included into the corporate policy manual, and that the municipal alcohol policy bylaw number 43-2013 be amended and updated to reflect this policy and brought to a future council meeting for consideration. And that delegation bylaw number 54-2021 be amended to include the delegated authority to the clerk or delegate to consider applications to designate municipally significant events, and that an application fee in the amount of $100 be established for processing applications to designate municipally significant events. I'm here if council has any questions.
Does council have any questions? Councillor Deputy Mayor Smyber.
Thanks. I thought that was a well-written report, and thank you. So this would then address, I think, the concern, was it the medieval festival that originally had concerns?
Yes,
So this
that's
would address
correct.
that and
Yes,
allow them to do.
exactly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Lockie?
Through your worship. So I'm just looking for some clarification regarding the fee. So is this, and the people that would apply, so this would be mostly charities and organizations within Thames Centre that would, this would
So
apply
through
to?
you, Your Worship, charitable organizations actually don't have to have an event that's declared municipally significant. It's a separate application process through AGCO. So this would be for private groups.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, then if that's the case, then can we have someone to move the motion and a seconder, Councillor Heman and Councillor Lockie. All in favor? All right, that motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item 8.2. CS-006-23. And we will ask Mr. McDonald to come forward.
Good evening. Through you, Your Worship. First of all, I want to thank everyone in the gallery and the press for staying to hear my report. I appreciate it. Gives me the warm, fuzzy feeling.
Are you feeling like the Maytag repairman?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So you have before you report CS-007-23 regarding the request for proposal for the engineering and project management portion of the 2023 capital budget project for municipal office site work. We only received one proposal for this RFP. So as per our procurements of goods and services policy, if less than 2 bids are received, the department head shall submit a report to council for direction. And also in that policy, it stipulates that only the bidder's name can be shared and not their pricing under this condition. Since the proposal is in adherence to the specifications of the RFP, In addition to this being a company that Thames Center is familiar with, staff are recommending that council approve awarding the engineering and project management of this capital project to the lone bidder, MTE Consultants. As a result, the recommendations of the report are that report number CS 007-23 be received for information, and that council direct the Director of Community Services and Facilities to award the municipal office site work engineering and project management 2023 capital project to MTE Consultants. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Councilor Heman, I see your hand up. Did you have a question?
Nope, it's just stuck up there.
Oh, stuck up. Oh, technology. Okay. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Smyber.
Just had one question. I know MTE, they do a lot of good work. Are you getting any feedback in terms of why some of these other companies aren't providing any bids or quotations?
No, through the mayor, we are asking as to why, because there were 14 companies in total that downloaded it. So we're not sure if it's due to our request. I'm only speculating we want a quick turnaround on the project, if that scared some away or if there are other factors, but we do want to find out so we can learn from it and also ensure that there is no oversights or things within the project scope that we may want to rethink.
Any other questions, council? Councilor Lockie?
So is there a need for a quick turnaround on this project?
There are some benefits. So first of all, the reasoning for the desired turnaround is to do most, if not all of the project in July and August while the school is closed so that we can use, so that municipal staff and visitors to the municipal office can take advantage of the adjacent school parking lot while this entire parking lot may be inaccessible. So that's the main reason for our desired timeline. But then on top of that, there's just also benefits to replacing our old infrastructure as soon as possible, but that's not quite as looming as just the coordinating of parking.
Thank you. Does that answer the question? Anyone else for a question or comment? Okay. Seeing none, Director McDonald outlined the motion. So could I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Heman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyber. All in favor? All right, that motion carries. Thanks very much. Then moving on to 8.3 PDS-022-23. Mr. Bancroft, you're speaking to this.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this pertains to an application for zoning bylaw amendment, which was considered by the previous council. And this would implement the draft plan of subdivision associated with the Hawthorne Park lands by Sifton. And also, it would also implement amendment number 28 to the official plan. I really have nothing further to add in terms of what is noted in this report, which explains in detail the extent of the zone change request with the various zones and whatnot, again, which would implement the draft plan of subdivision. So as noted in my report, I've got a recommendation that the report be received for information. And then secondly, that council pass the implementing zoning bylaw amendment, considering it is consistent with the provincial policy statement and it conforms with the Thames Center official plan through amendment number 28. I'm here also at the same time, Your Worship, to answer any questions should there be any from council. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Any questions from council on this particular item? Councillor Lockie.
Through your worship. So this may just be me being new to council with these questions. So this was reviewed by a previous council and I have not done the research to, read all the public comments on this. Is there any concerns that we should be aware of? Because this is obviously the final stage, right, before this is approved?
Yeah, that's correct. So as noted in my report, through you, your worship, there was extensive public consultation with regards to this proposal, with a number of public meetings that were held, and certainly an opportunity on several fronts for the public to provide feedback. So all of that information was included in a previous evaluation report, which was presented to the previous council for their consideration. You know, in hindsight, I probably should have included that evaluation report and appended it, attached it to this report as an attachment. I can certainly share those results with Councillor Lockie, as well as with any other member of council, should they wish. So apologies for not having the foresight to include that report. But I can attest that, again, due to the extensive public consultation, staff supported the request for the proposal in terms of draft plan approval, along with the official plan amendment and the implementing zoning bylaw amendment. So, yeah, that's my response to Councillor Lockie's question.
Okay. So my general comment on this is that, you know, I would prefer to have the time to do the research and review everything thoroughly. I don't know if it's possible to postpone this decision to a meeting to give us a little bit more time to do all the research.
I'm not sure the answer to that question. Deputy Mayor Smybury?
Just if I could make a comment, I guess. This is kind of unique, right? We're kind of in between the official plan that was approved by the previous council, and this zoning bylaw implements and that official plan that was approved by council. I'm seeing some density in here that and just housing in general that I think we'd like to see in Thames Centre, and if I could, I'd like to move it along. Because as you know, we do have people wanting to age in place in the municipality. And I think it's incumbent upon us to try to get them those opportunities so that they can stay in the community. So I know that I understand, you know, your concern in terms of getting up to speed. To be honest, the official plan's already been approved anyway. This is the implementation of that official plan. So I'm not sure that anything can change so that, but I just wanted to say, I'm just anxious. I have people in the community asking, when are we going to see some of this diversification? And so I'd like to see that sooner than later, but that's just a comment to your question. Thanks.
Councillor Crockett?
Thank you. I think just for a point of clarification for all of us is that the plan that we're currently seeing, to my understanding, is the one that was approved by previous council, and that this decision this evening is to just simply move forward with the rezoning to make things happen, correct?
Through your worship, this was the plan that was endorsed by the previous council and ultimately draft plan approved by the County of Middlesex. I should also point out that that draft plan of subdivision is currently in full force and effect. And the same holds true with amendment number 28 to the official plan. It is beyond the appeal period and in full force and effect. So Councillor Crockett is indeed correct that, you know, this is essentially the last piece of the puzzle. This zoning bylaw amendment would basically implement the Hawthorne Park subdivision.
And just a matter of note, unless I'm incorrect in this, the actual plan of subdivision will be coming back once, is that correct?
Your worship, the plan of subdivision is essentially a block plan, which will need to be in some capacity further subdivided. So in that regard, there will certainly be, depending on how further subdivided the plan is, there is a possibility that it would come back before council.
Councillor Lockie, would it help if you had the materials from the September meeting?
It would, yeah.
Can we provide that, Mr. Bancroft? All right, then.
Certainly, I can make that evaluation report available.
Okay, thank you.
Your Worship.
And Councillor Heenan, do I see your hand or is it stuck there again?
Through you, your worship, to Director Bancroft, is there any recourse at this period of time, seeing that the draft plan of subdivision has been approved by the county and by the previous council, when again, that it's in force? I'm just wondering, are there actual alternatives that could be decided at this point, or is this a formality in essence?
Through you, your worship, this is a formality that needs to be satisfied to essentially complete the package. But at the same time, in terms of recourse, there is the right of appeal from any person who contributed in the public process. So, realistically, that is a possibility from a recourse standpoint. But at the same time, like I mentioned previously, the policy direction for this proposal has been approved by the county through amendment number 28, and it is in full force and effect.
Thank you, Director Bancroft. And just having been present on council when those decisions were made, to Councillor Lockie's point, there was some significant opposition to certain forms of density, and it was council's decision to limit the height of some of the apartment buildings to meet those concerns. But also there is accommodation for seniors apartments in those actual apartments, which did meet a lot of the concerns that were expressed through the community consultation. So I think the only point of difference is on stacked townhouses. And really there's multiple ways for the developer to actually do that. They have the option, but they don't have the obligation in terms of the, I think it's the Class C density or Class 3. So that's some background, but I would agree with Deputy Smybert and Mayor Smybert that it would be good to keep this project moving for the benefit of the residents.
Thanks, Councillor Heeman. Councillor Lockie?
I'll just ask one more question. So with respect to concerns from the public, were there any concerns from an environmental perspective that were not addressed?
Through your worship, from memory, there were certainly environmental concerns that were raised. However, those are capable of being addressed through conditions of draft plan approval. So there were a number of studies conducted in support of this development, including an environmental impact study to ensure that there were no negative impacts on the adjacent natural heritage features. And, at the end of the day, those mitigation measures will need to be implemented through the subdivision agreement, which is noted as a condition of draft plan approval.
That answers your question, Daniel? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Bancroft.
Sorry, your worship. I should also add that these lands are situated within a wellhead protection area. And also there are sufficient safeguards in place in terms of the need for a risk management plan to be conducted by a qualified person to ensure that there's no adverse impacts on the wellhead.
And you're right, that was a significant portion of the concern amongst the residents. All right, any other questions? Okay, so then we have the motion before us as the agenda. So I would ask at this point then that we have a mover and a seconder for the motion. Deputy Mayor Smyber, and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? The motion is carried. Under new business, we have a number of items requiring direction. Municipality of Erin, Elderslie, and City of Sault Ste. Marie Council resolutions for support of Bill number 5, Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act. And the recommended motion is the Council of the Municipality of Thames Centre supports the Municipality of Erin, Elderslie, and the City of Sault Ste. Marie resolutions in support of Bill 5, Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, local MP, local MPP, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, otherwise known as AMO. We have a mover, Chantal, or Councillor Crockett, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyber. All in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thanks. Moving on to bylaws. The recommended motion before us is that bylaws 19-2023 and 202023 be given third and final reading, and that bylaws 36-2023 through 43-2023 be adopted as presented. A mover for the Deputy Mayor Smyber, seconded by Thomas Heeman, Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. All right, just a couple of things before we move on meeting schedule. This week, there are two significant events. One is for the induction of the new members of the Hall of Fame, the Sports Hall of Fame at the Arena at 7 p.m. And on Friday night, the official opening of the Royal Field, starting at 5:30. Okay, pardon me. All right, so 5:30. So mark your calendars, folks. And then the next meeting of council is tomorrow. It's the closed session beginning at 9 a.m. And then future meetings of council, Monday, May the 8th at 5 p.m., followed by Monday, May 29th at 5 p.m. So I think that leads us to adjournment. So a motion for adjournment, Councillor Crockett, and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.